remember, the Minister of Finance has just presented the 2016-2017 national budget, which has been pegged at 1.2 trillion kwacha. Now, we continue talking to various stakeholders. Now, I have the President of the Economics Association of Malawi, Mr. Henry Kachaje himself. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Fine. How do you summarize the statement by the Minister?
My summary is that this is a challenging budget. It's something that is going to require us as Malawians to rise up to the challenge. I specifically like his closing remarks to say I think time has come that we need to change our mindset. On average, I think people in the rural areas work almost, he quoted around 3 months in a year, and he says if we are going to increase our productivity in this country, especially with the heavy investment that government is planning on the irrigation sector, people must be sensitized and appreciate that we need to work extra hard, and probably we need to work at least 6 months in a year in the rural areas so that we can produce twice. So this is very commendable, and it's a kind of budget that is going to really stretch us as Malawians to reach our full potential.
Well, the budget has jumped from 917 billion kwacha to about 1.2 trillion kwacha. Did you expect such a slight increase?
Yes, I did expect it, because we are facing some serious challenges this year. The projections are almost half the population is going to be food insecure. We are talking about over 8 million people are going to be food insecure. Obviously, government has to foot a very huge bill, including the support from our development partners, to make sure that people have food available. I expected that there's going to be an increase, especially also that this increase, if you really look at it, in the real terms, the figure may look quite frightening that our budget has now gone into trillions. But in the reality, if we look at the movements of the exchange rate, kwacha against the United States dollars, you discover that probably in dollar terms, the increase isn't as huge.
Well, looking at the highlights of the budget, let's talk about FISIP. The Minister dwelt a lot on that. For example, he said they are trying to reform how it is implemented. He talked about probably allocating 60% of the implementation of this to private sector and then 40% to ADMAC and other government institutions. Do you think this is a right move?
It is the right move, because I think one of the challenges that we've been having in FISIP, it's administration. And it has proven over time that the heavy reliance on government departments, government ministries, to be solely responsible for distribution of the FISIP input has not necessarily been as economically effective. So private sector, its role, we believe they are going to be more efficient, and they can actually maximize the money that has been put there. The second thing that I've noted on FISIP is the commitment by government to make sure that the contribution by government is probably maintained at a certain value per each individual beneficiary, so that if there's going to be any movement in pricing, then that shouldn't be affecting the national budget, but whoever is a beneficiary must understand that already government is giving me something, but I must add something. And then the third thing that I've noted from the FISIP redesigned is the reduction of the actual figure that government is putting in. I think I quoted something like 31.4 billion now. It's down from somewhere where it used to be close to 60 billion. So we have actually reduced it, and there's been an increase on irrigation, agriculture, the green belt, which is definitely what, as an association, we had been advocating for. To say, look, FISIP is short-term, but irrigation is going to be long-term for this country, and that's where we must put more resources.
Well, the Minister also talked about the thorny issue of introduction of a National Development Committee or something like that. I think a lot of people, commentators, have been calling for this. What's your comment to how the government wants this to be implemented?
First of all, let me say it's commendable that the commitment still remains by government to set up this National Planning Commission. For some of us, especially as the Economics Association, we are of the view that we need to speed up the process. He mentioned that probably some bills might be brought to Parliament either towards the end of this sitting or maybe the next sitting of Parliament. But we are looking at the planning cycle of the country. We have been running on these Malawi growth and development strategies, and MDGs 2 comes to an end this June, which means we need a successor plan. And this planning commission, its need is really more important and more urgent than it was, because we don't want to get into another planning phase without the full involvement of such an established planning commission. For us, we are excited that government is still committed. The only plea is that this must be sped up so that, if possible, it should be presented in this sitting of budget.
Lastly, the minister also talked about introduction of a number of tax regimes. For example, introduction of standard VAT and other taxes. What's your take on this?
On the taxes, I must say that government has been quite understanding, I should use that word, in terms of the revenue flows of people that have been affected by the current economic conditions. So so far he didn't mention any increase in let's say pay for those people that are earning. It seems like it will remain the same. And on VAT, it's going to remain the same, 16.5%. What is encouraging is the broadening of it so that more players can actually be part of the tax bracket. My final thought on that is that Malawi has got a large growing informal sector. And this informal sector is actually handling a lot of volumes of transactions and business and revenue. And if there is going to be more reforms, part of the reforms must be to encourage people in the informal sector to appreciate the value of contributing taxes to government. And one of the things that the government is going to introduce this year is that you're not going to do business with government unless you are tax compliant. And I think that's the way to go. There is no point in allowing people that are not tax compliant to be benefiting from taxes that are generated and used by government.
And lastly, I promise on this one, the government says if it's going to make an increase at all in as far as salaries are concerned, it's only going to increase probably by 15%, and that's the lower grades. And then the other issue is it says no more recruitment of civil servants except for those 10,500 teachers and maybe probably in the health sector, agriculture sector, and the military. Very, very briefly, what's your comment on that?
It's the right move, and that's something that must be done. Let's appreciate that we are currently under public service reforms, and continuing to recruit when you are doing reforms may compromise the reforms themselves. And on the issue of salary increases, 15% is going to be average, but he alluded to the fact that low-grade earners might actually earn a little bit higher than that. So my view is that, and probably an appeal to our friends in the civil service, is to appreciate that this year government is trained, and especially that it's going to carry the burden of making sure that half the population has food. So those of us that have got a chance to earn a living and have got a regular salary must be willing to exercise patience and understand that whatever comes to us is probably a share of this little cake that government is trying to share to everyone.